Anyway, cheers.
Ooh.
And here's to the Master Chief.
Mm.
All right. Linux Mint. Wasn't it like a year ago, guys, that there was an article, should Linux Mint die? Why do we even need Linux Mint or something like that, right? There was an article, and I was like, that's the most ridiculous article I've ever seen. I'm not so sure anymore. As you all know, if you haven't heard, apparently there's been a disagreement, I don't know how else to say it, between the team from Mint and the team from Ubuntu about software packages called snaps. For those newbies watching, snaps are, I guess, portable, sandbox, self-contained pieces of software that contain everything you need to install that software, meaning all the library, all the dependencies. It's all self-contained. They are distro agnostic, from what I understand. So it doesn't matter what you use, you can download a snap and install it. They're meant to be to eliminate fragmentation for software. Does that sound about right, guys? Snaps and flap. Okay. Well, apparently Linux Mint didn't like the way Ubuntu did their Chromium snap package, right? Something like that. So in Linux Mint 20, Linux Mint, now keep in mind Linux Mint has marketed itself for over 10 years as a beginner-friendly Linux-based system. Great for beginners, newbies, Windows users, great. In Linux Mint 20, the Linux Mint team in their infinite wisdom decided to block the installation of snaps, at least for beginners. Now, those of us who've been around, you can go in the terminal, like a bunch of commands and do that. But Linux Mint is meant for newbies. However, they decided to block the normal installation of snap packages, meaning you cannot install snaps by default. They're blocked, which means you have to do some terminal commands. Not that terminal commands are that difficult to learn, but you cannot tell a brand new newbie to use the terminal to install something. To me, it's just not fair. So now I guess the team from Mint and Ubuntu, now they're having a dialogue, a conversation after the fact. My thing is, couldn't you brain surgeons talked about this before you decided to block the normal installation of snaps? Normally, I would not have a problem with this. However, if I came out with Carmine's Linux distro, or whatever I want to call it, the Italian Stallion distro, perfect for beginners, but in doing so, by default, I block a way for you to install specific software such as snaps because I don't believe in them. Can I still call that a beginner distribution? Can I call that a beginner-friendly distribution? Now, I'm not talking about the technology of snaps. It's not like all snaps are buggy, they don't work, they crash a system. They're not perfect, but then again, nothing is. I'm not talking about the technology. I'm talking about a simple philosophical difference, and in some way it's power politics. But because Linux Mint did not agree with the way Ubuntu does something with their snaps, I'm not saying that Ubuntu is right either, but because they didn't agree, Mint did not agree with Ubuntu, they chose to arbitrarily, no, we are not going to allow you to install snaps, at least not the newbie-friendly way. But Linux Mint still promotes themselves as a beginner distribution. No, you're not anymore. And it kind of hit me the wrong way because Linux Mint chose to install to usurp. I'm trying to think of a word. I guess I've had too much wine. I don't know. But they chose to take the road of power politics and philosophical differences versus just saying, you know what, we don't agree with what Ubuntu is doing with snaps. However, we will let the beginner user, you decide whether you want to install snap packages, software, or not. However, they've blocked that. So as you, the new user, they have taken away your choice to install snaps easily, even though Linux Mint is supposedly a beginner, easy Linux-based system. And again, it just hit me the wrong because it was totally unnecessary. When installing Linux Mint 20, if all they had was a pop-up saying, hey, to make it easier for you noobs, if you want to install snaps, snaps are blah, 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 you can do it this way, although we have a fundamental disagreement with Ubuntu on this particular piece of technology. No problem. But they flat out said, no, we're going to block it. Now, you can do some terminal commands, like I said, but that's not the point. If you're going to be newbie friendly, having to use the terminal is not newbie friendly, at least not off the bat. Snaps are the future. Whether Mint likes it or not, snaps, Flatpaks, app images, and whatever else they're called in the future, those are the future of software installations because they eliminate the number one evil of Linux, and that is fragmentation. Linus Torvalds last year was highly disappointed that in over 25 years of him, I guess he's the father of modern Linux, we still don't have, quote unquote, a standard Linux system for the masses, such as Chromebooks, based off of Gentoo. He was quite pleased, it appeared. He was quite satisfied with Chromebooks, Google system that have eliminated fragmentation. Now, how bad does it have to be for Linus Torvalds to appreciate Chromebooks? Because of fragmentation. Snap packages, because they eliminate what's called dependency hell. Now, I know if you're a beginner, you have no idea what that means, but that's okay. They eliminate what's called dependency hell. You just downloaded brand new ABC Linux. You want to install the brand new VLC music player, player. Oh, it's missing dependency. It's missing the libraries. It's missing this. You're going to have to wait till that file, that download, the software catches up with your new Linux distro. Snaps, it appears, eliminate that. Everything is self-contained. So snaps are not just easy for beginners. They're easy for everybody, period. Now, if a Mint team or another team doesn't like the way snaps are done, give me, the user, a choice to use them or not. Right. On the Linux Mint blog, they said, we are happy to tell you that we are not going to allow you to install snaps. Well, I'm not freaking happy. Hello?
Yeah, I mean, it's supposed to be about the user.
It's supposed to be about the user. And this, I'm surprised. I think Mint got started back in 2007, right? 2008. Yeah. It was right after I started using Ubuntu. So they know what they're doing. I was surprised. I was really surprised. They just said flat out, we're not going to let you install it, at least not install it easily. But you're supposed to be an easy system. My channel caters for beginners. It always has. It always will. Newbies, beginners, dummies, whatever you want to call it, will always be welcome here. Because I get it. I was once a newbie. I understand. So if I promote something that is on my top 5 newbie friendly, and now it's not only does it make Linux Mint look like idiots, it makes me look like an idiot. It's not my fault, but I call it as I see it. So the bottom line is right now I can no longer recommend Linux Mint for beginners. They've lost my trust. It didn't have to be this way because these are not newbie developers. They know what they're doing and they've done it quite well. Hats off to all developers. But when you pull a stunt like this, saying, you know what, we don't agree with what Ubuntu is doing, so we're going to block that software package. Linux Mint, would you even exist without Ubuntu? You should be kissing Ubuntu zapatos, and you can look that up. It's a Spanish word. Ubuntu, Lubuntu, Peppermint, Zorin, Elementary, would they exist without Ubuntu? Would they even have gotten started without Ubuntu? I'm not saying Ubuntu is perfect. I'm not particularly a big fan of the GNOME desktop. I know why they did it, and I respect it. They're not perfect, but where would we be as former newbies without the Ubuntu team?
We wouldn't even be here, Toss, at all.
Well, here's here's from Clem, an article. Uh, Ubuntu is planning to replace the Chromium repository package with an empty package which installs the Chromium Snap. In other words, as you install apt updates, Snap becomes a requirement for you to continue to use Chromium and installs it behind your back. This breaks one of the major worries why many people had when Snaps was announced and a promise from its developers that it would never replace apt. A self-installing Snap store which overwrites part of the app package base is a complete no-no. It's something we have to stop and could mean that the end of Chromium updates and access to Snap stores in Linux Mint. And this was, I think, and this was one of the hooplas because I saw this up and down Telegram when this came out. I think this was off of Ubuntu itself, and they used probably some bad verbiage. So in Ubuntu 2004 package base, the Chromium package is indeed empty and acting without your consent as a backdoor by connecting your computer to the Ubuntu store. Applications in the store cannot be patched or pinned. You cannot audit them, hold them, modify them, or even point Snap into a different store. You have as much empowerment with this as you were using proprietary software. An example, none. This is in fact similar to the commercial proprietary solution, but with two major differences. It runs as root and it installs itself without asking you. So that, being a devil's advocate, I think that's where, Linux Mint and Clem come in and say, is this just a start? So you're not getting the choice to install the apt package if you have the Ubuntu store on there. It's a dummy package, and you're going to get a Snap whether you want it or not. So that, I think, is part of the issue, and it's the way that Ubuntu itself said it's a backdoor.
They should have had a conversation, a dialogue before this, before Linux Mint just said flat out, we're not going to let you install.
There
snaps.
was, and I caught it on some of the forums.
Basically, what Mint has told Ubuntu, now I'll let you talk. Hey, Ubuntu, we don't trust you. F you, go to hell. Linux Mint is based off Ubuntu. I'm sorry, guys. It takes two to tango. I get it what Ubuntu is doing. I get it what Mint is doing. Okay. But if you're going to market yourself as a beginner-friendly distribution, and if somebody comes to me, hey, Toss, I heard about Linux Mint, heard about so-and-so. Well, you could install snaps through the, or software through what's called the Synaptic Package Manager, Software Center, or Snaps. Snaps are great because they don't have fragmentation. But no, Mint blocks it. Well, you're not newbie-friendly anymore. Again, I'm talking about the technology, not the philosophy or the politics or the beliefs. We're going to put that to the side because a newbie's not going to care. Their number one question is, how do I install software? Will this work? Now, once they become more advanced like we are, more experienced, then they may ask those philosophical questions. Perfectly understandable. But you cannot off the bat block it and expect a newbie to figure it out on their own. You can't promote yourself as a newbie-friendly distro because you have a philosophical difference with your father. Without your father, you would not even exist. Am I right or wrong? The point is communication, love, peace, wine.
But that's the thing. You're like, if you're going to install Chromium, you're not going to get the choice. If you're not a Snap package person, and you try to install from the app, you're going to get through Ubuntu. You're going to get the Snap package.
Well, yeah, but see, in the beginning, a newbie may not know exactly what that means.
Right.
They just want to install it because they heard that Snaps, have everything sandbox, portable, all the dependencies are there. There'll be no installation issues normally. Again, I would have no problem if Linux Mint was not a beginner-friendly distribution. I would have no problem. But you can't promote yourself, especially now, as beginner-friendly and off the bat block the installation of snaps when I've touted snaps as, for the most part, they work. I think they're the future to help eliminate fragmentation.
Yeah, they're both kind of,
It's a power play and it's childish.
There's a lot of history that's behind that too. Especially when you got one distro that's from Great Britain and another distro that's from Ireland.
Anselm, what say you, Mr. Chromebook user, trader? No, I'm just kidding. How are you, my friend?
Good. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hello? Okay.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
It's frivolous. It's pointless.
I agree because Chromebooks don't have that problem. They just
a newbie ain't going to know the difference one way or the other. They're going to use the software package that comes with their packager that comes with their distro.
Well, I look at it always, like I say, always this way. You know what? Give a person Ubuntu or Mint. Let them do what they want, and then if they get more advanced, then let them get into the philosophy.
Yeah, if they get to
philosophical part of it.
Thank you.
If they get to the point where they really like Linux, they're going to go through a half a dozen distro loads until they find out all the software and the names of the software that they really want to use. I had to do that. I didn't know what I really wanted to ask for, you know. Yeah. When I first started, I knew GIMP was an editor, but I didn't know all about all the other picture editors. It's something you start with, and a newbie's going to get his Linux. He's going to figure out how to put software. He's going to have to look through the software store and figure out for himself or ask questions what I should use.
Yeah, that's my thought. Oh, Zoom now put the time recording limit back in. Here we talk about being user. Hey, Zoom, I can't say it. I'm recording this.
If Verizon pulled the extra 15 gigabytes out of my phone, too.
Believe this? Yeah. After what we've been through with the virus, sorry. No problem, Zoom. I'll go back to Skype. I'll go back to Microsoft. No problem. Assholes. Sorry. I'll stop the recording now. I may not even delete the bad words, Zoom. Me. Jeez.